Columbus, Ohio, November 2023. Simon Carter is barely 6 years old when he does something that will haunt his parents for the rest of their lives. It's a cold Saturday morning in their suburban home, and the little boy sits at the kitchen table drawing with crayons when he suddenly looks up at his mother, Rachel, and says something that makes her blood freeze. "Mom, I know where my body is. I died in the Grand Canyon." Rachel's coffee cup stops halfway to her lips. "What did you just say, sweetie?" Simon's green eyes hold an unnatural calm, the kind of stillness that doesn't belong in a child. "I fell, Mom. The rocks were red and the sky was so blue. I was alone and I couldn't climb back up. I died there. My body is still there." Rachel forces a laugh, trying to dismiss the creeping terror in her chest. "You've never been to the Grand Canyon, Simon. We're going next month, remember? That's just a dream." But Simon shakes his head with absolute certainty. "No, Mom, it wasn't a dream. I remember everything. I remember writing in my journal before I died. I remember where I fell. I can show you exactly where my body is." The words hang in the air like a curse. A 6-year-old boy claiming to remember his own death in a place he's never visited. Rachel's hands tremble as she calls her husband, David, a geology professor who has spent his entire career studying facts, evidence, and rational explanations. When David hears what their son said, he dismisses it immediately. Kids have wild imaginations. But over the next 3 weeks, Simon draws maps, detailed, impossible maps of canyon formations. He speaks about trail markers, water sources, and coordinates with a precision that terrifies them both. And he keeps repeating the same haunting phrase. "My name was Michael. I was 34, and I've been waiting 45 years for someone to find me." Before we continue, please consider subscribing to the channel and letting us know where you're watching from. We read every single comment and truly appreciate you taking the time to listen to the story. Columbus, Ohio, was the kind of city where nothing supernatural ever happened. The Carter family lived in a modest 2-story house in the Clintonville neighborhood, where the biggest excitement was usually the annual 4th of July parade. David Carter, 38, taught geology at Ohio State University. He was a man of science, of facts, of things you could touch and measure. Rachel Carter, 36, had been a trauma nurse before Simon was born. She had seen enough unexplainable moments in emergency rooms to keep her mind open to possibilities that David would dismiss. Simon was their only child, born after 3 heartbreaking miscarriages. When he finally arrived, healthy and screaming, they had named him Simon because it meant he is heard in Hebrew. The boy was everything they had hoped for: bright, curious, gentle with animals, obsessed with dinosaurs. He loved chocolate milk, refused to eat green beans, and insisted on wearing his Spider-Man pajamas 3 nights a week. He attended kindergarten at Clinton Elementary, where his teacher said he was developing normally, perhaps even ahead in his reading skills. There was nothing unusual about Simon Carter, nothing that would suggest what was coming. The family had planned the Grand Canyon trip for months. David had always wanted to show his son the geological wonder he had studied for years. It was supposed to be educational, fun, a bonding experience. They had booked a modest hotel near the South Rim, planned several easy hikes, and Rachel had already packed the sunscreen and snacks. It was supposed to be a normal family vacation. But normal was about to become a word that no longer applied to their lives. The Grand Canyon, Arizona, October 2023. The first time Simon saw the canyon, he vomited. The family had driven from the hotel to the South Rim Visitor Center, joining crowds of tourists with cameras and excitement. David was already pointing out geological formations. Rachel was trying to get Simon to smile for a photo. But when the little boy stepped up to the viewing platform and looked down into the vast chasm, his face went white. He stumbled backward, his small body shaking, and then he bent over and threw up his breakfast onto the pavement. Rachel rushed to him. "Sweetie, are you okay?" Simon was gasping, tears streaming down his face. "I don't want to be here. Please, Mom, can we leave?" David frowned. "It's just the altitude, buddy." But Simon kept crying, kept pulling away from the railing, as if the canyon itself was reaching for him. They took him back to the hotel, gave him water and crackers, let him rest. By evening he seemed fine, playing with toy cars and watching cartoons. That night, Simon woke up screaming. Rachel got to his room first, finding him sitting up in bed, his eyes wide and terrified. The boy was hyperventilating. "I was falling, Mom. I was falling forever, and the walls were so red, and I couldn't stop, and nobody could hear me screaming." Rachel held him. "It was just a nightmare, baby." But Simon shook his head violently. "No, it was real. It happened to me." The next morning, David insisted they try one more hike. Simon agreed reluctantly. They were only 15 minutes into the walk when Simon suddenly stopped at a rocky outcropping. This is where the trail starts, the one that goes down to the hidden place. Then he collapsed. His head struck the edge of a large rock with a sickening crack. Flagstaff Medical Center, Arizona. The CT scan showed no skull fracture, no internal bleeding. The doctor told David and Rachel that Simon had a mild concussion and would need to rest. But Simon wasn't fine. When he woke up in the hospital bed, he looked at his parents with eyes that seemed decades older. "I remember falling, but not today. I remember falling a long time ago. I remember being alone for days. I remember dying." David cleared his throat. "Simon, you didn't die. You're right here." The boy's eyes filled with tears. "No, Dad. I died. My name was Michael, and I died in the canyon in 1978, and nobody ever found me." They drove back to Ohio 3 days later. Simon was quiet during the entire flight, occasionally drawing in a notebook Rachel had given him. When they got home, Rachel looked at what he had drawn, and her hand started shaking. The notebook was filled with detailed topographical maps, canyon walls with precise shading, trail markers with numbers and symbols, geological formations labeled with technical terms, limestone ledge, Redwall Formation, Bright Angel Shale. And in the corner, "My body is at coordinates 360544N1121401W, hidden cave below Horseshoe Mesa, fell October 15, 1978. Rachel showed David that night. "He's seen geology books in my office. He's just copying things." Rachel shook her head. "He's 6, David. How would he know coordinates?" Over the next 2 weeks, Simon's behavior became more disturbing. He would wake up crying. "I miss my sister. Her name was Jennifer. She never knew what happened to me. I just want her to know I didn't suffer too long." Rachel would hold him, feeling sobs that felt too deep, too adult, too real. David Carter refused to believe in reincarnation. He was a scientist. There had to be a rational explanation. He made an appointment with Dr. Helen Reeves, a child psychologist in Columbus. They sat in her office while Dr. Reeves asked Simon gentle questions. "Can you tell me about these dreams you've been having?" Simon looked at her with those unsettling, ancient eyes. "They're not dreams, Mom. They're memories. I remember being a grown man. I remember hiking alone. I remember falling and breaking my leg. I remember writing in my journal until I was too weak. I remember dying. Dr. Reeves wrote notes. And what was the name of this man? Michael Patterson. I was 34 years old. I worked as an accountant in Denver. I was wearing a red backpack and blue hiking boots. My flashlight was yellow. I had a Swiss Army knife with my initials on it." The psychologist looked up sharply. "Those are very specific details, Simon." Dr. Reeves spent an hour testing Simon. When she finally spoke with David and Rachel privately, her expression was troubled. "There's no sign of psychosis. His cognition is normal, but the details he's providing are exceptionally specific and consistent. That's not typical of childhood imagination." David left frustrated. Rachel had already made a decision. That night, she sat at the computer and began searching. Michael Patterson missing hiker 1978 Grand Canyon. The search results made her heart stop. A scanned newspaper article from the Denver Post, November 1978, local man missing in Grand Canyon. Michael Patterson, 34, of Denver, Colorado, failed to return from a solo hiking trip. Last seen October 14th, search efforts suspended, presumed dead. Rachel printed everything. When she checked on Simon before bed, he was drawing again. Another map. More coordinates. "Mom, please, you have to help me. I need to be found. My sister needs to know what happened." Rachel Carter found Dr. Elena Martinez through the Grand Canyon National Park website. Dr. Martinez was a senior historian and archaeologist. Rachel sent an email describing Simon's impossible knowledge. Her phone rang 2 days later. "This is Dr. Martinez. I got your email." Rachel's heart pounded. "I know this sounds crazy, but my son has information about a missing hiker from 1978. There was a pause. "Michael Patterson? You know about him?" Dr. Martinez's voice was careful. "I know every unsolved disappearance in this canyon, but what makes you think your 6-year-old knows anything?" Rachel explained everything. She emailed photos of Simon's maps and recordings. Dr. Martinez called back the next day, voice shaking. "The coordinates your son provided match exactly where Michael Patterson planned to camp. That was never made public. Only in the case file. How could he know?" Dr. Martinez arrived in Columbus 5 days later. She studied Simon's drawings in the Carter living room, hands trembling. David reluctantly attended. "Can you tell me about Michael Patterson?" The boy's face became sad. He was lonely. His wife didn't understand. He felt like he was failing at everything. Dr. Martinez pulled out the case file. "This is Michael's last letter to his sister." Simon couldn't read cursive, but when she read it aloud, he nodded. "Yes, that's how I felt. His Swiss Army knife had his initials carved. His flashlight was yellow. His canteen was green and leaked." Dr. Martinez stood abruptly, tears streaming. "Those details aren't in any public record. The color of his gear, the leaking canteen, those were mentioned by his family during interviews but never published. Michael Patterson's sister has severe dementia now. She wouldn't remember." David stood, face pale. "What are you saying?" Dr. Martinez looked at him directly. "Your son knows things only Michael Patterson could know. Dr. Elena Martinez spent 3 weeks in archives, making calls, piecing together Michael Patterson's disappearance." She called Rachel with emotion thick in her voice. "I found Michael's sister, Jennifer Hartley, 78 years old, living in Boulder. I spoke with her yesterday. When I mentioned Michael, she became very lucid. She remembers everything." "What did she tell you?" "Everything Simon said is true. Michael was an accountant, struggling with depression. His marriage was failing. He carried a red backpack Jennifer gave him. His Swiss Army knife had initials their father carved. The yellow flashlight was a family joke because Michael refused to buy a new one. The green canteen leaked because he'd cracked it on a previous hike. Simon knew all of that. Every detail. And there's more. Jennifer said Michael had a brown leather journal. In his last phone call, he said he would write down everything he was feeling. That journal was never found. Simon talks about writing in it until he was too weak to hold the pen. Jennifer wants to know where her brother is. She's dying, Mrs. Carter. Maybe a year left. She deserves to know." That night, Rachel told David everything. She showed him the case file, interview notes, the timeline. She played recordings of Simon speaking about things no child should know. David sat in silence, hands pressed against his face. "This isn't possible. This violates everything I know." Rachel reached for his hand. "But it's happening anyway. If we do this, if we take him back and search based on what he says, we're confirming this is real. What does that do to a kid? I think it's already real to him. Maybe the only way he can be free is if we help Jennifer get closure." Dr. Martinez called days later. The park will authorize a search expedition. Given the specificity and the cold case possibility, they're willing. But they want to interview Simon first. When? Next month. Grand Canyon National Park, November 2023. The Carter family arrived with a specialized team. Dr. Elena Martinez, 2 park rangers, Marcus Webb and Sarah Chen, climbing specialist Derek Foster, and forensic anthropologist Dr. Patricia Morrison. The conference room had canyon maps covering every wall. Dr. Martinez gestured to a red area. This is Horseshoe Mesa, 4 miles from South Rim. Remote, unstable, minimal traffic. Based on Simon's coordinates, Michael Patterson may have reached a hidden tributary here. Derek Foster pointed to cliff lines, nearly vertical. If someone fell, they'd drop 300 feet into a concealed ravine invisible from above. Simon walked to the map and placed his finger on an unmarked spot. Here. This is where I fell. The ledge crumbled. I slid down and my leg snapped. I heard the bone break. The room went silent. Sarah Chen knelt down. Can you describe what happened after? Late afternoon, shadows getting long. Pain was so bad. I crawled into a cave. Had my backpack, water, journal. Thought someone would find me the next day. What happened next? I waited. Drank water slowly. Ate granola bars. Wrote in my journal. Letters to my sister and wife. Green canteen leaked, so I lost water faster. Flashlight batteries died on day 3. Just dark after that. On the 6th day, couldn't write anymore. So thirsty. Kept thinking someone would come. Then I fell asleep and didn't wake up. Absolute silence. Derek Foster asked Simon to draw the cave entrance. The boy sketched quickly. A split cliff face, 3 boulders in triangle formation, a juniper tree growing at an impossible angle. Marcus Webb stared at the drawing. I know this formation. The false path. Several hikers nearly died there. If someone fell, they'd end up in an invisible ravine system. We'd need climbing gear and a full day to reach it safely. Dr. Martinez stood. Then that's what we do. We have authorization. The expedition was scheduled for 3 days later. The descent began at dawn. The team hiked along Grandview Trail, steep switchbacks down the canyon wall. Simon wore a small climbing harness, walking between his parents. After 2 hours, the maintained trail ended. Derek Foster set anchor points and safety ropes. This is technical now. Everyone stays clipped. One mistake, you fall 300 feet. Simon looked down. I remember this view. I thought it looked safe to continue. The descent took another hour. They rappelled down vertical faces, traversed narrow ledges. Simon moved with eerie confidence, pointing to features. That's the juniper tree growing sideways. Those 3 boulders in a triangle. That's the marker. They reached Simon's drawn area, a narrow ravine carved into the canyon wall, surrounded by sheer cliffs. Ground covered in loose scree. Derek studied the rock face. Definite instability. This section is fractured. Wrong weight placement, the entire ledge gives way. Simon walked forward, stopped at solid rock, pointed to a shadow. There. The cave is behind those rocks. Around that boulder, down 10 feet. A collapse covered the entrance. Dr. Morrison and Derek navigated around the boulder carefully. Sarah Chen called out, "Oh my God, there's an opening, completely hidden from above." Behind collapsed rock was a dark cavity, 3 feet high, entrance partially blocked. Derek shone his flashlight inside. The beam reflected off something. They worked 30 minutes, widening the entrance. Dr. Morrison crawled in first, headlamp illuminating the interior. She emerged 5 minutes later, face white, hands shaking. There are human remains inside. Skeletal, fully decomposed. Adult male. There's a backpack, journal, clothing, personal effects. Everything preserved because the cave stayed dry. Rachel made a small sound. David put his arm around her. Simon simply nodded. Dr. Morrison looked at Dr. Martinez. We need to document everything. But I can see a wallet in the backpack's outer pocket. If there's ID, we can confirm identity on site. The next hour was surreal as they photographed the cave interior. The park service moved quickly. Additional personnel arrived. Dr. Morrison supervised recovery. The skeleton was intact where Michael had crawled. Brown leather journal beside remains. Red backpack contained yellow flashlight with dead batteries, green canteen with cracked seal, Swiss Army knife with MP carved in, empty granola wrappers, photographs in plastic, wedding photo, picture of Jennifer, Denver skyline Michael carried. Simon watched with his parents. Rachel knelt. How are you feeling? Sad because Michael was sad, but like something heavy is lifting. Like I can put it down now. David spoke. Do you still remember everything? It's getting fuzzy, like waking from a dream. I remember being scared, wishing I'd made different choices, but not his whole life. Just the end. Dr. Martinez called Jennifer Hartley that evening. Ms. Hartley, this is Dr. Elena Martinez. I need to tell you about Michael. A pause. You found him. We found him. In a concealed cave. He didn't suffer long. Left a journal about loving you. Jennifer sobbed. 45 years I've wondered. Forensic. Analysis confirmed the remains through dental records. Death by dehydration and exposure, October 21st, 1978. 6 days after Michael began hiking. The journal was transcribed. Final entry in shaking handwriting. If anyone finds this, tell Jennifer I love her. Tell her I'm sorry. Tell her I wasn't alone because I was thinking of her. Jennifer traveled to Arizona with her daughter and grandson. She met the Carter family. Held Simon's hands, studying his face. My brother's eyes were green, just like yours. Simon smiled. He loved you very much. He thought about you a lot. How could you know that? I don't know, Mom. I just know. Jennifer pulled him into a gentle hug. Thank you for bringing him home. Thank you for giving me peace. The park service held a small ceremony at South Rim, where Jennifer scattered Michael's ashes into the canyon. The rest would be buried in Denver. As sunset painted the sky, Jennifer spoke to her brother. You're home now, Mike. Finally home. The Carters returned to Columbus in December 2023. Everything looked the same, but the family had changed. Simon's memories faded rapidly, like morning fog. By Christmas, he barely recalled the details. No more maps or geological terms, no more crying about falling or dying, just a 6-year-old obsessed with Lego, asking for a puppy. Dr. Reeves found no lingering trauma. Whatever door opened after the head injury had closed. No psychological damage, no identity confusion. She admitted she had no explanation. She couldn't rationalize how a 6-year-old possessed verifiable information about a man who died decades before he was born. David struggled most, a scientist who'd witnessed something violating every principle of reality. He spent weeks researching reincarnation, reading everything. One night, Rachel found him surrounded by books and Simon's drawings. I can't explain it. That terrifies me. Maybe we're not supposed to explain it. Maybe some things are just true. Do you believe in reincarnation now? I believe consciousness is more complicated than we understand. Death might not be the absolute end. Our son helped a dying woman find peace after 45 years. That's enough. Michael Patterson was buried in Crown Hill Cemetery, Denver, January 15, 2024. Jennifer insisted the Carters attend. Small gathering. Jennifer, her daughter, grandson, elderly friends, the Carters. A minister spoke about lost souls finding home. Simon watched with interest but no recognition. When Jennifer asked if he remembered Michael, he shook his head. I'm sorry. I remember I helped somehow, but not the details. Jennifer smiled through tears. You gave me the greatest gift. You brought my brother back. After the service, walking through winter bare trees, Simon stopped. "Mum, did I do something good?" Rachel knelt. "Yes, baby, you did something incredibly good. You helped someone who was lost." The boy smiled, satisfied, and ran ahead. David and Rachel watched this mysterious child who'd carried a dead man's memories and let them go. Medical examinations showed no lasting effects. Neurologists found no brain abnormalities. Every expert said the same. Physically and mentally, Simon Carter was perfectly normal. Where does consciousness go when we die? Can essence travel beyond a single lifetime? Simon Carter's case challenges everything. A 6-year-old accessed memories of a man who died 45 years before. He knew unpublished details. He guided search teams to a location unsuccessfully searched for decades. Science offers no explanation. Coincidence cannot account for specifics. Fraud makes no sense. That leaves the possibility consciousness is more fluid than understood. Boundaries between lives are permeable. Some part continues beyond death into new life. Michael died with regrets, wishing to tell his sister he loved her. Across 45 years, that wish was fulfilled through a child who brought him home. Jennifer got closure. Michael got burial. Simon returned to himself. Questions remain. Why Simon? Why after head injury? Why did memories fade? Dr. Jim Tucker documented thousands of similar cases. Children reporting past life memories between ages 2 and 6. Details verified. Memories fading by age 8. Simon fits perfectly. If this moved you, share it. Press 1 if you believe Simon carried Michael's memories. Press 2 if there must be rational explanation. Press 3 if you're unsure, but know something profound happened. Subscribe for more mysteries challenging reality. Share with someone grieving, wondering if death is the end. Maybe consciousness doesn't die. Maybe people we love never leave. Maybe Simon proved that. The Grand Canyon still stands. Michael Patterson waited 45 years. Now he rests, story told, sister's heart healed. Simon plays in his backyard, carrying no conscious memory of the soul that touched his own. Rachel sometimes wonders if Michael watches over the boy who saved him, if souls recognize each other across lifetimes, if gratitude creates bonds death cannot sever. She has no answers, but her son was chosen to carry a message across time, to bridge a dying man's wish and a sister's hope. That miracle changed their lives forever. This is the mystery of the soul. This is Simon Carter and Michael Patterson. 2 souls, 2 lifetimes, 1 impossible truth. What you choose to believe is up to you.